This is Amy Chan from CakeDecoratingSchool.com, and if you like cake decorating, you're in the right place. In this video, we'll be teaching you how to make your own wedding cake. We've geared this one towards those of you who have never done this before, so think never made a cake before, this one is for you. We're using as little equipment as possible and the easiest methods as possible, and our goal is to get you to a finish line that's a cute, petite 6-inch round textured cake. It's broken down into steps so you can skip ahead, rewind, and rewatch as always. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to make your own wedding cake, and we're assuming you've never made cake before. So we're going to go with the best way to get a good result is to start with buying certain things like cake mix and frosting. For the cake mix, you just want to grab a flavor that you like. We recommend lighter colors. We picked out vanilla just because it's going to be easier to ice and cover up. And we want an oil-based cake mix because we want that extra moisture to be kind of saved in there. It's going to give you a little better staying power than butter in this case, and I know there's some mixes that include butter, but that also means your ingredients are going to be cheaper. Typically, it's water, oil, and eggs, and that's a great one to look for. It's going to come with some easy-to-follow instructions for both the mixing and the baking, and some bake times. We're going to be baking in a 6-inch round pan, so we're going to need a little less than those 2-inch rounds on the time. As far as frosting goes, you want to skip what's in the baking aisle of your grocery store and go to a craft store or the craft section in a big superstore and that cake decorating section. And you'll see things like this. There's other brands besides Wilton, but you're looking for the decorator icing. And we've just grabbed the medium consistency, and you can see it comes with directions and storage tips on it as well. We just grabbed a 1-pound can because we of course have a frosting recipe that we love, and we're going to be using that today. But this is a great option if you've never made buttercream to keep you from wasting a lot of time and ingredients. To get ready for baking, you're going to need a few things that you might not have on hand. First up, cake pans. We're using 6-inch round by 2-inch high pans. These are just some Wilton ones. You notice they're a light color and they've got these nice straight sides. The thing we want to avoid is going with those kind of disposable tinfoil ones with those crinkled sides. That's going to leave you some really rough edges on the side of your cake and make them kind of hard to get out of those pans. So you at least want to invest in some nicer little pans for your cake, or borrow some if you have a friend that has them. And you're going to need at least 2 of those. And we're also going to need some shortening to grease it, a paper towel to apply that, and some parchment which you can buy in a roll. And I've got also a pencil and some scissors here as well. We're going to line the bottom of our cake pans with parchment. So I want to grab the pencil that I have, trace around the bottom of my pans, and we want to give ourselves 2 circles that we're going to cut out. Next up, grab your scissors and just cut around those lines you traced. It doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to make sure this little circle that we're cutting out is going to cover the bottom of our pan and provide an easy release. Next up is going to be preparing our pans. I'm going to take my paper towel, get a little bit of that shortening on there. Obviously, you don't need as big of a container as I do. I'm going to cover the entire bottom of the pan and then the sides. So think all the way up the sides. Once that's coated, we're going to take one of those parchment circles and place it down there in the bottom. By greasing the bottom and then laying down the parchment, that ensures that the parchment will release. And now we're just going to go ahead and grease that top surface of that parchment. That's going to help it lay flat in the bottom of our pan and also ensure that the parchment peels off the cake easily. A few important tips for baking. When you mix up your batter, go ahead and preheat your oven according to whatever it says on the box and follow those mixing directions. It's going to be different for everyone because you're going to be using different box mixes. But the important part here is not to overfill your pans. That box is enough really for 2 8 or 9-inch rounds. So when we fill up 2 pans, since they're 6 inches, there'll probably be some left over. And the key here is not to overfill. You want to go about halfway up the sides of your pan, and that's going to allow your cake room to rise so that it's not spilling over or giving you a huge dome. So you'll notice there's a nice gap there on the sides of our pans. That's going to be perfect. And these are ready to go into our oven and bake. Our cakes are out of the oven and they're cool, and you want to wait at least 10-20 minutes. They can still be just a little warm when you unmold them, but you can wait for them to cool down completely. And you want to make sure that they're done in the oven. And some good tests are, you'll see it possibly start to pull away from the edge a little bit. When you insert a toothpick, it'll come out clean, meaning there's not going to be any wet batter on it or any big clumps of cake. And a gentle press with your finger will spring right back when it's in the oven. Mine have been out for a little bit, so I'm taking the top surface of my cake with me. But if you press down with your finger and you leave a little divot, that's a good indication it needs a little longer in the oven. Now that we're ready to take it out of the pan, I just want to take a thin blade, so it can be a knife. I've got a straight spatula here, and just go all the way around those edges. And I'm pressing that knife or that spatula right against the edge and making sure I go all the way around. And that's going to make sure the cake is free from the sides of the pan. We've got the paper on the bottom, so if we give it a nice tap, maybe a gentle shake, you should feel it release for you, nice and clean. And there we go. Next up, we're going to start preparing our cake. And you might notice a little dome on the top. Mine's not too big. If it's more pronounced, it's going to be even more important to trim it up. And I've just got a long serrated knife. Mine's a bread knife. And I'm just going to gently take off that dome. You want to hold it as level as possible. If you need to, you can use things like cake pans or other objects to help keep it nice and level, but we just want to make a nice level surface there. If you have a dome, especially a pronounced one, when you start stacking layers together, that can cause your cake to crack. We're going to prepare cakes for the freezer. Since we're going to be doing this ourselves, and most people are typically pretty busy the week of their wedding, you want to go ahead and bake your cakes ahead of time and get them in the freezer. If you do it about a month before, that should take a lot of the stress off, and your cake should keep nicely. Notice I pull out my plastic wrap, put my layer on, fold it over so I get a nice overlap on that seam, and fold up the sides. And what we're going to do now is turn it. So think like just a little quarter turn, so 90 degrees. And this way, when we pull out again, that seam, that overlap, is going to be going the other direction. So we're going to seal in really nicely. And you just want to go ahead and give that a nice little double wrap. So one way in each direction. Once you have both of your layers wrapped, I recommend putting them in a secondary thing. So I'm just using a freezer bag. It could be freezer safe Tupperware or something else, just to make sure you have an extra layer of seal against freezer burn, although it's not going to be in there really long enough that should happen. So get both of those layers in something. You just want to make sure it's important not to crush things. So also when you put it in the freezer, make sure you're putting it on a nice flat surface. You're not putting anything on top of it that could smash it. So if you need to, you can go ahead and put it in a cake box or something else to make sure those layers stay nice and beautifully shaped the way they came out of the oven. We're getting ready to make our cake, or rather to decorate it. So we want to get everything we need together. First up, you want to have your cake layers thawed and ready to go. So if you've frozen them, take them out of the freezer the day before you want to decorate them and put them in the fridge and let them thaw. They should be nice and ready to go by the time you're ready to decorate the next day. You're going to need at least one pastry bag. I've got an 18-inch disposable. This will hold a nice amount of buttercream for me. A single large star tip. We're using a 1M. There's a lot of large star tips out there. The opening itself doesn't matter. This is just going to help us apply the buttercream to the cake and make it easy to complete our design. We're going to use some scissors to cut our bag. So just any pair of scissors. They can be kitchen shears or regular scissors. Doesn't matter there. We're going to use an offset spatula. If you don't want to have one of these and you don't want to invest in one, anything like this silicone spatula, it comes with a lot of kitchen sets, so it's something that a lot of people will have on hand. You can see it's got a relatively flat blade with a nice little edge and that nice rounded tip that'll be great for creating texture. So anything like this will do as a replacement if you've already got something in your drawers at home. You'll of course need your buttercream, so whether you buy or you make it, you're probably going to need somewhere between 1.5 pounds and 2 pounds to cover your cake. A presentation board. We've got a nice 8-inch board, so it's 2 inches in diameter, bigger than our cake, and that's important. You want it bigger than the cake, at least by 2 inches. And this one is covered in a nice white grease resistant paper, so it's coated to kind of resist grease and stay looking nice. It's white, so it'll kind of blend in, but you can use anything you want here. There's a lot of fun options out there in different colors, especially metallics. And finally, a cake box. We've got an 8 by 8 by 4, so you'll notice the width on this is the same as that cake board that we're using, and that's going to help keep things secure, and we've got enough height here to accommodate our cake without worrying about crushing the top. So whether you have a cake box or something else like a small cooler or cake carrier, just make sure it's the appropriate size and you have something to transport your cake in. We're going to make our bag. You'll notice mine is sealed on the end, so I want to go ahead and just cut just a tiny bit, not too much. You want the tip to be able to go down in there and for all those points to stick out, but you don't want to cut off too much. So it's better to go with too little and then cut off a little extra when you can see just where you need to be. And we just want to make sure that all those points are exposed. There we go. So you can see all the points, and the bag is not more than halfway back. If you cut too much and it's too far back, you might shoot your tip out the end of the bag, and that'll be a mess you have to clean up. So just cut a little bit off and make sure that all those little points are exposed for you so you get a nice clean stream of frosting when you're piping. Next up, we're going to load our bag. You'll notice I've got it folded over, so I folded it down and I've slid my hand up in that fold. It allows me to grab it, and that makes it easy to take a nice big scoop or two of our frosting and clean off that spatula for ourselves. We've unfolded the bag, and now I can use my hands to push that frosting down, give it a twist and a hold, and a nice little squeeze, and that'll help burp things. They'll get the air bubble out, and we'll be ready to start decorating. We're going to get started. I've got my presentation board out here, my bag, and I'm just going to give myself a nice big swirl of frosting. Then you want to take your first layer of cake. You'll notice I've flipped it over. Just take a moment to kind of center it on that frosting. It's going to attach your cake to the board. And when you like where it is, just gently peel off that paper that we used when we were baking. We're now going to use our bag. Just think about piping a spiral around that initial little star I made. Take a moment to adjust whenever you need to. You can always put more frosting in the bag, just like we did before. And you want to go all the way to the outside edge. And this will give us a nice even layer of frosting in here without even having to spread anything. And it doesn't have to look great, it just has to cover that whole surface. Once we have that all filled, we're going to take our second layer and just gently place it on top. You don't need to press down really, you just need it to make contact, and just make sure it's centered. I'll use my hands often just to make sure that those sides are lined up, and you can get lower down and check it from the side visually, you know, kind of get yourself at eye level with your cake just to make sure everything's lined up, because that's a great recipe for success. It means our cakes will be stacked on top of each other and we won't have to use any excess frosting to cover up any little leans or gaps on the sides. We're going to repeat what we did before in the middle, right on top. So just give it a squeeze in the middle, make a nice star, and just circle around it until you get to that outside edge. And what we're doing here is laying on a nice layer of that buttercream that it's going to be easy for us to smooth out. So it doesn't have to be perfect, you just have to cover. So I think we want to go all the way to the edges. And if you extend past a little bit, that's perfectly fine. We're going to take a moment and just gently smooth our frosting. You can use your offset spatula, or if you have something more like your silicone spatula, you can use that as well. It doesn't really matter what you use as long as you have a nice straight edge. So you can see it's very easy just to kind of smooth it out a tiny touch and take off any excess. We just want to do this relatively quickly. You can see it's easy enough to do using either tool. because we're using a buttercream that crusts, so we want to make sure that we just go ahead and do this before the crust forms, and then we can go ahead and work on our sides. And I'm just turning it myself with my hands as I need to, because we're assuming that if this is your first cake, you don't own a turntable. We've got our top started, so now it's time to work on our sides. We're pulling out our bag again, and I'm going to start at the bottom. You can start at the top if you want to. It's really personal preference, but I'm just going to kind of glide along. So think the tip is just kind of barely grazing the surface, and I just want to go up and down. If that's awkward, you can just pull up, but basically just like we did on the top, we're putting on a layer of buttercream using this tip, and that's going to help keep us from picking up crumbs and mixing them into our frosting, which is essentially what we're doing. We're using this tip to essentially layer on a nice layer of buttercream, seal all of our crumbs in there. And if you get any on the board, you can just remove them, and make it easy for us to smooth out our cake without picking those crumbs up. So I'm just going to continue to rotate and work around until I get all the way around my cake. I've gone all the way around, so I'm going to do exactly what I did on the top. I'm going to use my spatula and just lightly skim it across the surface of all those ridges that we made. And you can see that's going to give us a nice application of frosting there. Any excess, just right back into my container. And it's going to give us a great application of buttercream on the side of our cakes without disturbing any crumbs. And I'm not going to worry right now too much about the transition between the side and the top, because we're going to put a little light texture on this cake very quickly after this step. So I don't have to worry about things not looking perfect. So just go around and get that frosting so it's just smoothed out a tiny touch. We've got our top and our sides prepped. So now we're going to just take a little bit of our extra buttercream and just lay on a little texture. So think a little bit on the tip of either your offset spatula or silicone spatula, whatever you have. And we're not going to press really into the sides. We're just pressing excess frosting onto it. And I'm just going to slowly go around and work and layer on some texture. And this way, if our sides aren't perfectly straight or neat, it doesn't really matter. We can use the excess frosting to build up an area if we need to put more frosting there, and we can give it a nice, beautiful texture that looks like a beautiful, like perfect kind of, I would say, homemade style cake. I'm going to keep going all the way around the sides, and then we'll come back and show you doing the top. We finished up our sides just by working around it all slowly. And you just want to take your time, and if at any point you get any crumbs or anything like that, just take your time and remove those. If you need to, go in back with your bag and just pipe a little star or something just to give yourself a little buffer. But now we're going to take same method, just a little frosting on the end of our spatula, and we're just going to make texture on the top. And this is a great way if you had, say, a little area that was uneven. You can build it up by adding a little extra frosting and evening it back out. So we can shape the overall look of our cake by adding a little extra frosting anywhere there was a low spot. And I'm going to start working on the outside edge, you'll see, and kind of pulling across. And I'm going to incorporate those little edges with the center. And you can see that blends the two together. Now we look like we have a great transition from the side to the tops over there. And that little joint where we had that little bit of messiness around the edge just kind of disappears for us. So don't worry about that if you see it happening while you're icing your cake and getting it ready to put on the texture. Just gentle little curves, little S motions with your spatula, just layering on a little buttercream anywhere you need to. So here we have our finished cake. You can see we've got our texture on the sides and the top, and it kind of joins everything together. I added just a little extra frosting anywhere I felt it needed it to kind of even things up and level things out. And it gives us the overall look of a beautiful kind of luxe, heavily frosted cake that's got a kind of rustic home style feel to it. So it's perfect to add any extra decorations to. We're talking about adding decorations, and there's two kinds that I would say I lean towards if you've never put decorations on a cake before. The first, a pick style topper. These will have these great little picks right at the bottom. So basically it's just inserting it into the top of your cake. And they have a lot of fun options. This is just a black silhouette one of a couple. So it's nice, it's classic, it's kind of, works really well. The one thing you want to check is the width here across the bottom, so check the dimensions. We want it to be smaller than the diameter of our cake. So we made a 6-inch cake, so you just want to make sure that that measurement right there is less than 6 inches. These are really lightweight, so they're easy to apply, and you don't really have to worry about them falling over. The other thing would be silk flowers. Unlike fresh, they're going to be really easy just to put on the top of your cake. Most of them come just with the heads that you can kind of pop off, or you can kind of cut them off if you need to ahead of time to get them ready, but they're easy to place and you don't have to worry about them wilting, and they're also very lightweight, so you don't have to worry about them sinking into or damaging your cake. That's all for this lesson on making your own little 6-inch wedding cake. Hopefully we've put you on the path in the right direction to creating your own mini masterpiece for your big day. And if you have any questions for us, whether it's about the cake assembly, decorations, or transporting it to your venue, leave them for us in the comment sections. And if this inspired you to get into cake decorating, we hope you'll check out some of our other great tutorials or check out your yearly membership in our school. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It truly supports our channel and helps us share more in-depth cake decorating lessons. Want to level up your skills? Our yearly membership has certificate programs from beginner and up. Learn more at cakedecoratingschool.com.